Because you're saying to me that after you've been gone, you come back to start something in the vision that many followers had shifted gears to do something else.
That's correct.
What gave you the gumption to say that I have the ability?
I never said that because I doubted my own ability. But I loved the Honorable Elijah Muhammad so much, and I loved the community so much. I thought, at least since his name was being written out of history, that I should do something, because a man that great who did that much should never be written out of history. There wouldn't have been a Malcolm X if there were no Elijah. There wouldn't have been a Muhammad Ali if there were no Elijah. There wouldn't have been an Imam Muhammad if there were no Elijah. And there wouldn't be any Farrakhan if there were not Elijah. So the media takes the students and lifts the students and compares the students and tries to make the students greater than the teacher. I am unworthy to unlace his shoes. No matter what I do, his inspiration is what has guided me all of these years. And if it were not for my love for him and my desire not to see him written out of history, because he's the man that white folks most feared. They didn't fear Malcolm, especially when he left Elijah. And they didn't fear the change of direction of the nation. They feared the idea of Elijah Muhammad. In fact, if I may say this, I was on the island of Jamaica when Brock Peters was doing a movie called Lost in the Stars, and I had just appeared on national television with Tony Brown on Black Journal. And they were highlighting parts of my speech before the Congress of African People in Atlanta. And the person who was the producer of the film, when Brock told him that I was on the island, he wanted to meet me. So when I came to the set to meet him during their lunch break, he said these words to me: "You seem like a nice guy, Farrakhan. It's not you that we fear. It's your ideas." Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come. So if we have an idea that undercuts white supremacy, that undercuts a social, political, economic, religious system that has suppressed and oppressed the masses of dark people all over the world, and white people themselves too, then that idea must be crushed. You can kill the man, but if his idea lives, he lives. So Garvey, when he was deported, the whole idea of Garvey back to Africa, that was struck. Martin Luther King was more than "I have a dream." Martin Luther King was a brilliant oratorical genius. And what Martin Luther King was when he was assassinated, he was coming to grips with America and the world problem and the war. So what do? You take a man great like that, and you don't allow people to get into the body of knowledge that Martin Luther King represented. Who's reading Martin Luther King's words? All you're reading is "I have a dream." But that man was more than that. What about Brother Malcolm? You say, well, by any means necessary. Well, what does that mean? You can't sloganize a man that has that kind of knowledge that he put before Black America and white America. But how much of Malcolm do you really know? Very little.
We live to have our public dignity, since we were taxpayers in the system, and since we were blood in the war. We have the right to have something called equal protection under the law. And so there was no conflict in my head between the self-reliance of Operation Breadbasket and changing, because Breadbasket is one thing. When Harold became mayor, which we would call integration, the kind of leverage that he could do of contracts and goods and services was the dimension Dr. King talked about. I often think that the differences between them is was frankly exaggerated in many ways.
Well, being a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and looking at Dr. King, I admired Dr. King and I loved him, but I didn't agree with his methodology. Malcolm, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, us, and the nationalists were on a different page. Okay. Now, if you look at the back page of Muhammad Speaks, which had our program on it, which we have today on the back page of the Final Call, it starts like this. We want freedom. We want a full and complete freedom. Now, we want justice. We want equal justice under the law. Now, here's Reverend Jackson, Martin King, the civil rights movement, fighting to change unjust law so that we, Nation of Islam, want equal justice under the law. Then he said, we want justice applied equally to all, regardless of creed or class or color. And we want equality, equal membership in society with the best in civilized society. Now, these are three basic principles that guided the Nation of Islam. We did not feel, and do not feel today, that we can get a full and complete freedom with white supremacy in power. We do not feel that we can get equal justice under the law with white supremacy in power. We do not feel that we can get equality, equal membership with white supremacy in power. So now, Reverend Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement, in their way was trying to defeat segregation and white supremacy that said that we had to sit over here while they sat over there, we had to live here while they lived there. Okay, but now, where is this going now? What are we talking about here for 2 hours on this show? We're talking about the potential of black people, but the impotence of us as a people to affect real change in the way that we are going. So now, if we united, just say, and pushed our way to destroy racism wherever it is, and white supremacy, what kind of reaction will that bring against us? And are we prepared for that? What is the future? Can we hang around here for the next 50 to 100 years waiting on good white folk to change the reality? Our people are dying as we are talking today. They're dying in the streets from a lack of health care, from AIDS, from drugs and guns and self-hatred. If we don't change these realities within the next 20 years, as a people, we might not even exist. They have skillful ways of killing us today. They don't have to use the gun anymore. They have chemicals. They have beautiful ways of getting rid of masses of people that they disapprove of. And this is why, Reverend Jackson, the scripture says, we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of the darkness of this world and spiritual wickedness in high places. While we are sitting here having this conversation, the satanic mind is also conversing on how to stop any black progress, because, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us, a rising force pulls apart and destroys a falling force. And as Bush was looking at this from the top down, we, like Jesus, are looking at it from the bottom up. When Jesus came into the world, whether we like to admit it or not, he was a revolutionary. And he said that those who were in the light would go into darkness, and those that were in the darkness would come into the light. So as we rise, somebody else falls because their power is built on our backs. And that's why they killed Jesus or put him in court, and that's why you've been to jail, and that's why I'm probably going to jail. Because if we speak to the poor and shake the poor, that's the earthquake that begins to topple the buildings of America that have built on the backs of the poor. And that's why they don't want black leaders to be concerned for the poor. And any black leader, go throughout our history, that spoke and the poor listened, that man was set upon. Martin Luther King was not a man who just said, I had a dream. If you read Dr. King's speeches in 65, 66, 67, 68, that man was evolving into a giant intellectually, and it was for that reason that he was killed, because the two of them were not as far apart as it appeared. Neither is Reverend Jackson and myself. The NAACP Executive Secretary, Director Ben Chavis, appears to have a great deal of respect for you. Now that you've had the first meeting of the Black Leaders Summit in Baltimore, Maryland, what will you present as an agenda to propel the group forward aggressively? Program of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's why I'm asking you to help me in this building fund, because most of our leaders still have a mentality to want to beg white people, and that's the wrong mentality. We have got to make demands on ourselves and on our people first, then a demand on government. There's $300 to $400 billion among black people. That's enough to support every black organization by ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, set up multiple factories, international trade and commerce. You're just throwing your money away. So you need somebody to help you see the value of our unity and the pooling of our resources. And that's what we're going to attempt to do with the summit. And I believe they're already on that road, but I would hope that you would back me up so I can show them an example of what a few people pooling their resources can do. And then if all of us did this with the millions that we represent, my God, we could almost change the condition of our people overnight.
I'd like to follow that same thing with a gentleman who we talk about, someone who is a real leader and has so many people that listen to him on a daily basis, and we just love what he does as a leader of the Nation of Islam. I was honored some years ago now, obviously, to introduce Minister Farrakhan at a political rally. And I'll never forget that, because as we know, under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the nation did not vote, did not put emphasis on that. This was the time, and Reverend Jackson was running, that Minister Farrakhan came out and said, we are going to vote. But not only that, he talked about why they hadn't voted in the past. And I'll never forget that. Without going back over history, though, because we have a limited amount of time, but I want you to tell us, Minister Farrakhan, how you feel relative to this whole reauthorization of the Voting Rights Act and voting in general, if you would.
Thank you. First, it's a great honor to be here at Push with my brother, the Reverend Jesse Lewis Jackson, and with my brother Ron Walters and my sister Michelle Goodwin, and of course you. This is the 37th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And in our discourse, we don't want to forget why we are here. That great man pushed to break down laws that were unjust, that created an inordinate amount of suffering among us as a people, but it rendered America powerful but greatly immoral. So Dr. Martin Luther King, in fighting to make America more just, he was fighting to give America perpetuity. Because whenever a nation's evil outweighs its good, there's a force in nature that removes that nation, no matter how powerful that nation may be. Now, the fact that in 1967, 1965, 1954, great effort was made by black leaders and black people and white people of goodwill to change unjust laws. 50 years after Brown versus the Board of Education, we are still in segregated education and inferior and inadequate education. Since this is 2005, 40 years from the passing of the Public Accommodations Bill, which was to give black people access to things that we should have access to, but not necessarily to destroy what segregation had given us. Segregation was bad, but we took a bad situation and the dollars that were in our hands circulated in the black community once, twice, 3, 4 times, which allowed us a little bit of economic development. Which will come on later tonight. Reverend Jackson said, breaking down unjust laws gave us access to capital, which would have allowed us to expand the hotels, the motels, the restaurants, the bus companies that we had under segregation. It was never Dr. King's dream that we should lose everything that we gained in segregation to end up integrated with nothing. Now, one last point. The fact that my brother Ron Walters and my brother the Reverend Jesse Jackson recognizes that in 2007 the Voting Rights Act comes up for renewal, but the critical parts of that Voting Rights Act is not that we will have the right to vote or not, but enforcement powers. Now, the thing that bothers me, Cliff, and to the American people who are watching, the scripture says we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and the rulers of the darkness of this world and spiritual wickedness in high places. If we didn't have a man like Reverend Jackson and Dr. Ron Walters watching the tricky language, which means that the minute they give us something that we die for, the minute we think we have it, they are making moves to take it away from us. So we're not dealing with sincere people, we're dealing with disingenuous hypocrites, white racist supremacy, and that's why we have to organize and unify with power to change realities. Excuse me for getting a little loud.
You're excused, Brother Minister. And he reminded us, where do we go from here?
Anybody to think that we are somehow without the capacity to fight back. or to give up or to surrender.
No, and I think
we got to fight. And part of it, Cliff, now is that we're on the defensive. Defense means fighting in an attempt to stack the court with right-wing judges. It means fight in an attempt to kill affirmative action. This is a massive street protest must accompany votes. We cannot accept any proposition that begins to infringe upon 50 years of progress.
But no, I totally agree with that, but that still does not.
But we have all too often, Cliff, depended on somebody else other than ourselves. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us years ago that the factories were going to close and black people would be out of employment. And he asked us to pool our resources intellectually and financially to do something for ourselves before we were forced to do it. Now, with $750 billion coming into our community and going right out, we have the means to change the reality under which we live if we accept the responsibility to do that. Leadership is always looking elsewhere, but the responsibility now is ours. So I feel, as a solution, that we in leadership need to encourage our people to look within, because if we accept the responsibility that really is ours to change the realities under which we live, then in that coming together first, Reverend Jackson and I being on this show. Now, there are many that would like to see us in conflict with each other. Some ideas may be different. But the fact that we are here together is a sign of something that's big. Why? Because if black leaders first recognize that our people are going down in health, in politics, in morality, we are headed into the abyss. And only the unity of us as leaders addressing the real concerns of our people is going to help us take control of what we can take control of. For instance, right now, why are we marching against a white man who kills a black man, but will not stand up when black people kill one another? That's on us. We have to accept the responsibility to make peace in our own communities, that our elderly and our young can live in safe communities. Then we can invite investment into a peaceful community. Once we are united, we can begin to unite that $750 billion to make a difference for ourselves. So really, the burden is on us. And if we become that unified black community, our leverage will force government to react. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us, our unity is more powerful than an atomic or hydrogen bomb. And if this enemy is frightened of weapons of mass destruction, what would he do if he saw all of us in unity planning the development of our people in an intelligent way?
If we ever get it together, that is, get unified, how do you all envision the black future?
If we ever get it together and get unified, how do we envision the black future?
Yeah.
I think you said, if we all got it together, what would your vision be for us? Is that, am I correct? Something like that?
Yeah.
Brother, if we all got it together, whatever you envision, you could make it happen. The unity of all of us is all that is necessary to solve 99% of all our problems. Right now, our unity would put $400 billion active dollars in our hands, which makes us the 10th or the 12th richest economy in the world. With that kind of money, if we got it together, You wouldn't have to rely on CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN. You could own your own television stations across this country to tell your story. You could put your satellite up, talk to the world. If we got it together, Lord, you could own millions of acres of farmland and grow food that is not poison with the death-dealing poisons that the profit merchants of death are putting in our food. Brother, whatever you can vision and want, our unity would bring it into existence. And that's why they fight so hard to keep us divided. May God bless us to become united. Why so many black people are killing each other in Africa today? You don't have to go to Africa. You say, I want to know why so many black people killing themselves in Chicago today. Because we're all under the influence of a vicious, unseen enemy who is working through our ignorance to make us enemies of one another. That's why we're killing each other. We're ignorant. And somebody bringing the guns in. How many guns did you make? You ain't driving by with a zip gun. Where did you get the Uzi? Where did you get the street sweeper? Where did you get the AK-47? Where did you get it? White folk. They made it and brought it to you. You ain't got no power, and you feel like you get that gun in your hand, you got a little juice. You're not a chemist. You don't know how to make no crack. If you did, you'd put him out of business, wouldn't you? You know how to smoke it, you just don't know how to make it. So once we can destroy ignorance from our people, we destroy the field in which Satan works. The Bible says, my people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And that's why the greatest thing that our people can have today is a teacher. And the Bible says, how can they have a teacher? How can they know except they have a teacher? And how can they have a teacher except he be sent?
Because I've seen you engage artists, and I know about meetings that have happened that never reached the press. Violence that was curtailed as a result of you having sit-downs with individual artists in their camps to calm beefs. But where have your contemporaries been? Where have those that have been quick to condemn their own children for the language that they use and the behavior that they're engaged in? Because you and I both know that even though Shorty on the block may not listen, the artist will if you come, if Jesse comes, if Sharpton comes, if others come. But in many cases, I've only seen you come. And so what about your contemporaries who have had the capacity to mentor these artists, who have the ability to reach the masses, but have only been engaged in condemnation?
Well, first, what is the spirit out of which the condemnation comes? I watched a sister that lives in Philadelphia that passed away maybe 2 years now. I'm sorry, her name escapes me. But she was the first one to condemn, not the first, but
C.
Dolores Tucker. Thank you. She condemned the artist for their language.
Yes.
But not out of a spirit of hate. She's a mother. And just like your mama would take you aside and put that switch on your backside and then send you back out to play, see, Dolores Tucker was like a mother saying to her children, look, this is unacceptable. We've come too far for you to do this to your sister, to your brother. But it appeared like a mean-spirited condemnation. She went to the record executives and blasted them. She's a mother. We are her children. She wants to see her children better. Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was speaking in a black environment, and his words were taken out of a black environment to the national environment, and it looks like Bill Cosby now, who is had the father image on the Cosby Show, is now talking down to his people. He's talking to the reality of a condition that he wants to raise us from. Maybe he didn't do it in the best manner, but his spirit was not a spirit of hatred for our people. I'm in love with black people. I don't care how you present yourself. I'm in love with you. Whether you gay, you straight, you this, you that, I know that there's an essence in black people that if you touch it right and bring it forward, that same black man that's doing what he's doing today will do something greater tomorrow. Malcolm is one of the best examples that he went all the way down to selling our women and selling drugs and pimping and robbing. But when he got a message that touched deep inside of him, Malcolm the pimp became Malcolm the professor, the teacher, the leader. And that's what's sitting up in these rappers. Now, if you look at 50 Cent, who is hot today, Kanye West, these young men have millions of people in the palm of their hands. I don't want to see us condemn them. I want to see us teach them, encourage them, enlighten them, and encourage them to do better, because the whole world is listening. You go to Africa, it's rap. You go into the Islamic world where they hate Western culture, the young may be hiding it under the bed or somewhere, but they're listening to rap artists. So to me, that says to the young rapper, look man, you didn't want to be no leader, but you got millions that are hanging on every word you say. Why don't you become a teacher of them? I can give you wisdom, put it in rap language. Jesse could give you knowledge and you put it in rap language and start instructing your people. But then the record executives would say, we don't want that. So let's set up our own distribution companies. We have to distribute something better to our people, because as a man thinks, Jesus said, so is he. You are what you eat. So if you're eating filth, you can't have a clean system. And if you're eating filth in your head day in and day out, you can't come out with clean language and clean actions if that's what you're feeding on. So Mao Zedong, to me, one of the greatest revolutionaries of our time, he had 1 billion people to convert to his idea. What did he do? He saw the value of the cultural community. So he took his ideas, or they took his ideas, put it in song, put it in dance, put it in plays, put it in books, and before you know it, China became a great, great nation. We'll never become a great nation without our artists. Our artists are the key, not only to the liberation of black people, but the liberation of humanity itself.
I'm an educator and I see very little future for our black youth. What can I do to help more? Because I'm very discouraged with what I see daily. My dear brother or sister educator, the thing that we must do to encourage our youth is to give them, get first the knowledge of self and give that to your students. You won't have any trouble with your students. Your students want to learn, but they don't want to learn the old foolishness of this world. And I might say to all teachers, please listen to me. Every book that you have ever read on child psychology is worthless. I'm going to say that again. Yes, sir. Say it again. All books that you have ever read on child psychology are worthless. All your textbooks on methods of imparting knowledge to your children are useless. If you are not a creative teacher, you can't hold the attention of your students. The old methods won't work. And you cannot treat students like subordinate jackasses. Listen to me carefully. You cannot treat your children that way. You're going to have to learn how to deal effectively with human beings. God is growing these young people right out from under your grasp. And it's not because the young people are so bad, it's because their elders aren't good enough to handle them. And that is the truth. If you, the teachers, would recommit yourselves to study, forget about your master's degree, forget that, because that didn't qualify you to deal with today's youth. Forget your doctorate degree. Not forget it in the sense that it's not valuable. Of course it's valuable, but I'm not saying that you should forget it in that sense. But don't rely on it, because you have to come into a whole new understanding today to deal with our young people. And I respectfully suggest to you, you can't browbeat them and get the best out of them. I respectfully suggest to you, you can't sell wolf tickets to children, because today they buy them. You got to treat people, whether they're little people or big people, you got to treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. If you will study, my dear brother, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you will have so much ammunition to go into your classroom and revive and revitalize your students. May Allah bless you, educator. You are one of the most important people in our community, the teachers, the educators. You must recognize how valuable you are, but you must recognize how valueless knowledge is that has passed out of time. All right. Picture a flashlight with ever-ready batteries. That flashlight has a radius of light. You are standing at the center holding the light, right? And the distance to darkness is the radius of that light. And you can stand in the center and you can swing that light and you get a circumference. Is that right? If you put the light down where you stand and walk, you will walk in the light for a while, then you will walk out of the light into darkness. Unless you have a light with you. And I respectfully suggest the world of white education is dying. And if that is the light by which you see, you are going blind. And if you are blind and you are trying to lead the blind, all are going to fall in the ditch. You need a new knowledge today. And I respectfully suggest that that new knowledge is coming from God through the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
This person asks, what do you do when someone you care about wants to sell drugs?
Well, you pray for them, and then you go to them and tell them in the clearest, straightforward language what this activity will produce. You cannot, as a friend, continue to be the friend of your friend when your friend becomes an enemy to himself and his community. You have to tell your friend with love, I love you, brother, and I love our people, and I'm sorry that this is the road that you're traveling, but I warn you, brother, that this is a dangerous road for you, for your life. And I refuse to take part in this with you or to be your friend if this is what you choose to do. Now, a man will think about that. He may not change, but you have to divorce yourself from such a friend. If you don't, that kind of friend will pull you down with him. There's an old saying, birds of a feather flock together. See, the righteous can't keep company with the wicked, even though we ourselves were once wicked and trying to get ourselves straightened out. Now just suppose, here you come. You become a Muslim. You work hard, you clean yourself up. You went and you saved your money and you got a brand new Chevrolet. And your dope selling friend, you see him. My man, how you doing? Give me a lift. He gets in your car. He got several bags of stuff in his pocket.
Teachers.
Police come, pull the car over. He said, oh man. In your car.
Right, right.
Because he's going to try to get that stuff off of him. He's not going to say, hey man, you know what I mean, I just got in my friend. He's going to try to duck it, throw it out the window, do something. Police pick it up. All right. They not only take him, but they take you, impound your cars. Your car's gone. All because you had a friend. That you loved your friend more than you were strong enough to make that severance when you know your friend is involved in that. That's it, man. What's up, brother? How you doing? How are you? Can you drop me off? I'm sorry, man. I got a run to make and keep running. And when that friend gets in trouble, as he will, or is killed, as he might, as he's dying, he will remember the words that you told him in warning him. His blood is off of your hands. May Allah bless you to be strong enough to know that only Allah, the messenger, and the true believers are your friends. Seek friendship with God and the righteous.
Yes, sir.
And keep friendly company with your people that you grew up with, but when they choose that lifestyle, you have to go another way.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to be very brief on the questions that I was given. To my dear sister, the unity of us as family means that even if you are a single parent with male children, if I am your brother, then your sons are my nephews.
The problem with us is that you are raising your children by yourself without the assistance of strong males. The Nation of Islam and other black organizations need to support the single parent, the female, by helping her without trying to be what she may not want us to be, but being to the sons what they need for us to be. Women can rear men, but you have to be very strong. I had a strong black mother, no father. She was superwoman. And she beat me in line. I mean, I was not going to buck her authority. The strength of the black woman now is called into question because she has lost a lot of power to discipline her young men. We become your helpers if you will permit us. The Nation of Islam should offer, and the Brotherhood of the Mosque should offer that kind of support to you and your sons, for your sons are ours too. And it should be the same in all organizations. Each of us has to fight against the influence of the world that snatches our children, because we only have to offer them our knowledge, our guidance, but we do not have to offer them what the world has to offer. Plus, sister, when you get busy as a parent and you leave your children at home to be educated through the television is subtly breaking your own grip on your children. And by the television separating the children from their parents, from their elders, then there is no wisdom from our experience that we can impart to children who don't respect us anymore. So they're getting their learning from Satan through the TV and through their peers that know what they know but are not wise enough to guide themselves. Well, how do we break that? How do we break that? You know, as a Muslim and a student of Scripture, I find that yesterday's understanding is insufficient to deal with the shape of young people's minds today. Therefore, they don't listen to preachers. They don't listen to teachers. The little sister was talking about the lack of spirituality in the church. Many of us think we're spiritual, but we're backward in our spirituality. What the children are looking for is practical lessons from our spiritual experience that can equip them to cope with the pressures that today's world offers to them. All of us as the elders, we did not have the forces operating on us that the young people have operating on them. So they need a greater knowledge and sophistication to deal with the forces of the world, and therefore educators have to stop being frozen in time by quoting dead scholars whose knowledge and methodology is insufficient to handle today's problems. We as educators, as spiritual teachers, have to continue to grow to cope with the reality of today. Otherwise, we not only can't do our children any good, we can't do ourselves any good in this kind of world. So we have to grow. And we have to study. You can't say as a mother, I can teach my children if you're not constantly learning yourself. And most of us as parents have stopped the process of learning, so you have died at the level where you were. learning is not relegated to young people. Learning is a process that continues from the cradle to the grave. A doctorate degree does not qualify us to deal with what's out here today. It is perpetual study of the realities of our time that will allow us to speak to the youth. Now, I will close by saying, and I'm not trying to pin any kind of laurels on self, but God is ageless. If he has been here from time immemorial, he don't have any gap in being able to deal with what he creates. But why should there be one with us? It's because we are not evolving with the God who comes through time. We get lost in time, then our children march on to somebody else's drumbeat because we are unfit and unworthy to teach them. This is why we're losing our youth, because we are unfit to teach them. The madness that we were taught in college is insufficient to teach our babies. They cannot eat garbage. That's what we were fed on, and that's why we are unproductive as a group of leaders. We can talk the thing, but we don't bring it into actualization, because white folk never showed us how to do the independent thing. They taught us how to function in their reality, but not to create a reality of our own. So all of us need to go back to school again. All of us need the process of learning again. All of us must come off of that plateau that we reach when they say we are a doctor or a master. And we must understand that we are students and we are children in the disciplines that we are studying, and perhaps we'll be able to cope with the evolved minds that we have produced. Children at 1 and 2 years old are manipulating their parents. If they can do that to you at 1 and 2 years old, what in the world will they do when they're 5 and 6 and 8 and 10? And there's no methods courses that white folk teach. There's no psychology that they teach that will enable you to handle the mind that God is producing from your loins. So the scripture tells you that the old generation, whoever that is, I don't know them, but I read about them. That old generation, so used to Pharaoh's way, they couldn't see self-determination. They couldn't see a way to make their children do better. So God said, let the old ones die out. And he took the youth and made something of a new generation. And I'm saying that we are losing our youth because we're not worthy to have them, because we think like the slave master wants us to think, and not the independent, self-determined way that God wants us to think. And so, my brother, for you to want to be a minister is a very noble desire that must be accompanied with study, but above all, discipline. And I would like to offer you an example in Malcolm X. Malcolm came out of prison and went to Detroit, Michigan. Malcolm was faster than any minister that was there teaching. Malcolm knew how to go out and get people, but the minister, who was the authority in the mosque, didn't know how to do it. Malcolm went out in the street and he got all kind of people to come to Mosque Number 1 in Detroit, Michigan to hear the minister. But he went to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and complained about the old man who really wasn't progressive. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told him not to condemn the old man. Get under him, learn from him, and then go beyond him. If you cannot work under people, you'll never be a good person over people. So the training for you, or any of us who think we know more than those in leadership, and in every organization there are always people in the organization who feel they're smarter than the leader. And that's why we don't have too much organization, because we challenge our leaders, break them down, and then get into leadership and somebody does the same thing to us. So there's a method, there's a process by which you are sent. And the first thing you got to learn, in order to be a good leader, you got to be a good follower. In order to be a good teacher, you got to first become a good student. And one of the things I prided myself on is being a good student. I loved to follow the lead of Brother Malcolm when he was my teacher. I learned from him. I studied him like a man studies a book. When Malcolm was no longer there, I studied the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I was obedient to him. There were people in authority over me. I had ideas, but they didn't like my ideas. Well, I wasn't going to buck them and destroy organization. I disciplined myself knowing that my time would come. And you know what? Cream always rises to the top. And all you got to do, you can shake the bottle up all you want to. Sit it for a moment and cream will rise to the top. No matter what gift you have, what talent you have, if you execute that talent within organizational structure, the people in organization will soon see the light and the gifts that you have, and they will automatically elevate you to become what you want to be. But never destroy leadership in order to become leadership. Support leadership, and God will bless you to do all the things that you wish to do. See me afterwards, and I'm going to give you a number that you can call me, and I can get you some material to start studying for your ministry. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And brother, to you, you raised a good question about the deterioration in the education. That's by design. Not only black folk can't read, white folk can't either. There's a whole set of stupidity that is being foisted on America in general, black folk in particular, so that you can be manipulated through the art of subliminal suggestion. When you don't want to read anymore, then somebody has to read and interpret for you. And that's what the television is for. That's what the newspapers and periodicals are for. They are to interpret events for the ignorant so that they can herd you like sheep. And that's exactly what's happening in America today. The country is being taken without even firing a shot. And it's not being taken by you nor by me, but there are forces that are at work that are undermining the learning process. At the same time that we can't read and 30% of America are functional illiterates, the white boy is going out in space. Do you understand? It takes tremendous knowledge in mathematics to go out in space. Well, if they know how to put a man on the moon and put a telescope out in space, then correct it. What you mean to tell me you can correct something in space and you can't correct something that's right next door? No, this is a plan, and we are falling victim to a master plan to undermine and destroy. But by the help of Almighty God, when this kind of talent comes together in one room, to not show off what we know, but to subordinate what we know to complement the knowledge of one another for the good of our people, then we can break the cycle, destroy the plan, and free our people. White folk have agreed not to fight, but something has broken their agreement. Check Bosnia, check Chechnya, check Russia, and the breakup there. That thing is going to spread right through Europe if they're not careful, and white folk will be killing each other one more time over the spoils of Africa. Let's get busy. I think with God's help, I hope I've answered whatever I could of your questions.
Domestically, I've mentioned education, the health problems, the church, the media. Tie all this in together, and of course, many of these things, Brother Minister, would take money, and there is no money. The deficit is higher in this country than it has ever been in the history of the United States, and we came in with the greatest surplus we've ever had. So over $1 billion a week spent in a place where, as you pointed out earlier, if the people in Iraq wanted democracy, it was up to them to get it. Not for us to do it. And of course, that's not why we went there. Remember the weapons of mass destruction? The imminent danger? How many people would have voted, do you think, to say, we need to democratize Iraq? How many of the senators would have voted for that?
Very few.
That's right.
My brother, you know, the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, most of you may not have heard of him. We call him Master Farad Muhammad. He came here in the 30s, and he taught the early followers of Islam to throw everything in their medicine cabinet out. And he said that your hospital is your kitchen. And if you know how to eat, to live, and you know the chemistry of food, which is the chemistry of your body, then you can heal much of your illness by what you put in your mouth. And most of us that followed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, I mean, it was frightening in a sense, because we never saw death. In fact, so few people died in the Nation of Islam, one man could go all over the country and say Muslim funerals. And the older people in the mosque were all spry and full of vigor and vim and vitality. And all of that was not due to going to doctors. It was due to eating properly and thinking properly. So you don't need necessarily a lot of money to correct a health condition. You need a lot more sense. And the more knowledge you have of what this is that God gave us, this marvelous, magnificent creation called the human body. And if you know what to eat and how to cook it, and if you understand the reality of the land to your body, and if you understand that the enemy has taken land away from black people, and we in silliness have run away from the South and left land down there, and we've lost thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of land. Your grandmother was probably more healthy than you. Your grandmother could pick up weight that would kill you today, and you go to the gym.
My dear.
And our grandmothers were not suffering from obesity. We are an overweight people today because we are eating really the wrong kinds of food. And even those of us who learn how to eat, the sad thing is you don't control the production of what you eat. So when you go to the supermarket, it looks good, but is it? They put dye in the fruit to make it look orange, to make the lemon look yellow, to make the meat look red or pink. And these are carcinogens that end up giving you cancer. Now, if you're not aware of how the food is being raised, then even to eat that food is taking a chance. The hormones that they're pumping into the meat to fatten it before time so that they can make more money. Then they put these hormones in the meat, you eat the meat. And most of you that are in here that are 50 and 60, I'm speaking now to women. When you were a young lady, you probably had your menses at 12 and 13 and 14 years of age. But now our children at 9 years old have their menses. At 9 years old, they have breasts sometimes bigger than their mothers. Well, this is not normal. It is the kind of food that you're eating that is actually growing you, just like it's growing that calf to get it to the market sooner. They're growing our little daughters, getting them to the market sooner. And while you are busy working, your fine-looking 9-year-old, your lovely formed 10-year-old, your beautifully figured 11 and 12-year-old is being sought after by men who have no job, nothing to do. So the woman, the woman who is the natural protector of the child, you are not there now, because you have to work and the man is not there, so the children are being warehoused. And most of you even have been abused by uncles, by fathers, by grandfathers, by cousins, by brothers. You know the effect of this on you. And today, with your children coming to form so young, most of them are abused, are misused. We got a lot of problems, and we're not going to solve them by our leaders putting our minds in the sky after we die. We've got to figure out how to live on this earth and get the best out of what God intended for us to have.
This is a sister asking a question. What does a black woman do when there is a man in the house that does not help to raise the children?
Well, that's a heavy question. I don't know what you mean, help raise the children. There's a man in the house. Are they his children? Is he a roomer in the house? Is he shacking in the house? When you say raise the children, do you mean he don't give any money? Or do you mean he doesn't give counsel? Or do you mean he doesn't play with the children? He doesn't spend time with the children? See, there's too many unanswered questions there. But if you mean he's in your house, he's a man in the house. He's not a husband. And he's not a father. You got children, but he's enjoying you. But not doing nothing for your children, because he didn't come there for your children. He came there to have a comfortable bed and a warm woman in the bed. He didn't come to romance or raise your children. And a wise woman, before she would let a man come in her house, she don't think about her sexual and biological need. That woman got to think about her children. And what this man that she's letting in her house, what does he think about her children? And if he don't love your children, he don't love you. Don't waste your time. And when a woman has young daughters growing up, you better be careful what kind of man is in your house that you want to raise your children. You raise them all right this way. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know whether I ever answered that question. But based upon the way it read, that's what I felt from the words.
Do you still stand firm on the issue of racial mixing?
I don't like it.
Why not?
No. The black woman is suffering today from no black men. Black men in jail, black men on the corner, black men uneducated. Go look at the black colleges or white colleges. You see black women in there getting the finest education. Where will their counterpart be when they come out of college? There's no male counterpart that's even worthy, or very few that are worthy to marry these young women who are trying to be chemists and scientists and mathematicians and engineers. So we need to wake up. That's why I called the Million Man March. I wanted to get black men to take their responsibility. Now, you can't legislate against love. So when a black person and a white person are truly in love, I have nothing to say about that.
Do you forbid in black and white dating and marriage?
I would love to forbid it. Because we are so far behind. Our women don't have adequate men. So I want the black man to marry the black woman. I want the white woman to marry the white man.
Why?
Because that's the natural thing. If it were not natural, you'd have many cross marriages. You don't find that many Chinese marrying white people, or Indian people, or black people. You find it somewhere, but Chinese marry Chinese. White people marry white people. What's wrong with black people marrying black people? That don't mean we're racist, but we look at the crossing of the two. Well, okay, they're in love. Well, love transcends ethnicity and racial boundaries. And there will come a time when human beings will love each other enough or respect each other enough that there will be a cross between this and that. But the nature of things is, if China became Muslim tomorrow, they ain't marrying Japanese. They're not even marrying Koreans.
But doesn't it tell us that a society is advancing in its compassion and understanding of equality?
Is it
if
really?
People can mix?
Is it really advancing when there's no advancement in the intellectual capacity of the masses of the people?
But I'm not talking about academic achievement. I'm solely talking...
What I'm talking about, sir, is a slave mentality, where the slave is always admiring the slave master's woman. And there was a time in America just a few short years ago that we could be lynched for just looking under a white woman's dress that was on a clothesline, much less trying to get sexually intimate with a white woman. So that history is right with us. You know, when you talk to me like that, I want you to sit with Jewish people and ask them, how far have you grown? Are you willing to marry a German today? Is that easy for you? How do you bring a German home to someone who has the numbers engraved in their hand that they were a victim of the Holocaust? See, you have to be sensitive to what your people have suffered. Over time, they say, time heals wounds. Well, it ain't quite time yet for Jews and Germans to just mix up like that, maybe.
And is it time for black and white?
Well, it's time for us to understand each other better. It's time for us to try to get along with each other better. The principle of justice is the means by which enemies become friends.
But aren't you yourself the product
I absolutely
of an interracial
am.
marriage?
But it wasn't interracial marriage, sir. It was interracial rape. My mama was a black woman. My father was half white. So when you're on a plantation, you didn't tell the master you couldn't have a black woman. White men have always had access to the black woman, and because of that, lighter-skinned black men and women were fashioned out of that relationship. Today, well, that's a voluntary thing, but in those days, it was actually rape. Please discuss the courtship process. No, I just had to clear my throat. Brothers,
Sisters, there are a lot of singles here. How many of you over here single? Single sisters? All y'all single? How many of the brothers are single? Ooh. Big field awaits the wide awake man. We don't have no monastery here. We believe in courtship and marriage. That's a fundamental principle of the faith. In fact, in Islam, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said marriage is one half of faith. And so we must, in this life, try to find the proper mate and marry. The courtship process is a very beautiful process in Islam. We don't believe in sampling the goods, you know, she's not a cookie. You take a bite out, I don't like that. And sisters, same thing on your side. I'll try that brother out. I'll try the next one. See, marriage, real marriage is not physical. Real marriage is spiritual. Even though we're attracted to each other initially on a physical plane, you can't remain together if you're just physical. It's got to go deeper into the spiritual. So in Islam, we don't allow, you know, we don't allow, you know, this premarital sex. Let's shack. You know what I mean? See what this is all about before I make my decision. You know, sex has a blinding characteristic to it, brother and sister. You get involved in the physical, you get so caught up in that, you really never get to know the person. And down the road a piece, you start seeing past the sex now. Because see, all of that wears out. Over time, of course. All machines sometimes slow down and break down, brother. So when you get so sexually involved, you become blind sometimes to the real person. So in Islam, where there is not premarital sex, courtship is very critical. How it's done. Court means just that. Bring the evidence as to why you are fit for me to marry you. Well, what, you want to get to know the person, right? What do you know about him? I just think he's handsome, boy. He's so sharp. She fine, man. You see it? Especially when that headpiece fell off. Did you see her hair, man? No, man, that wasn't no weave either, brother. Courtship means just that. You get to know the person through conversation. You want to know something about the history of the person. You want to know something about the background. You want to get to meet members of the family. Then you want to ask and raise questions that give you insight into the character of the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with. But if you're all enamored by the good looks or the fine body and all this kind of stuff, you may never get to the real issues until down the road. 2 or 3 children here, and you finally get around to the real issues of life and find out you shouldn't have been married in the first place. And that's the way most of us have been, isn't it true? We got married, but we had a lot of sex before marriage, and then ended up marrying probably because sister got pregnant, and you say, well, we hanging, you know, we'll get on, we'll get married, that's it. And then later on, when the sex wore off, you begin to see things, and you, I didn't know you was like that, but I don't know why. I've been this way ever since I was born. And then you end up in bad shape, brother. End up fighting her, killing her. She end up killing you, fighting you, and the children end up suffering. So the more time you take to explore the mentality, the characteristic of the person, then the better decision you will come to. And as long as you haven't made any definitive decision, then courtship is a great process. You know what I mean? No commitment there. You haven't gone to bed with her, so you ain't made no commitment. And even if you put a ring on her finger, it ain't never too late to say, well, wait a minute, I think I'm making a mistake here. It's better to back out before the fact than wait till after the fact. But everybody's not suited to each other simply because you believe in the same God. Somebody say, I'm a Muslim, there ain't no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger. Well, that's all I need to hear. No, you better hear a little bit more than that, brother. I'm writing a book on that process, by the way, and so I'd like you to study it, because what white folk have been knowing, we don't really know, that there is a science to procreating the human species. It's not an accidental thing. It really is a scientific matter. And if you really know what you're looking for in a woman, and you will know what you're looking for if you know who you are. And the first person you gotta discover is yourself. So before you go run looking for a woman, you know, look at who you are. Well, who am I? Well, I'm this, I'm that, I got this kind of characteristic and that kind of characteristic. You gotta be very honest with yourself. And when you see your weaknesses and your strengths, have you ever put down on a piece of paper what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, and then look at yourself? Now, if I want to make life better in the future, I got to marry a woman who can negate some of my weak characteristics, and then when we multiply, the child could be greater than both mom and dad. And this is the way intelligent people think. I mean, just like they breed horses and breed pedigreed dogs. I mean, you're not a horse, you're not a dog, you're more intelligent, but you should be thinking about breeding, not on a cheap level. But who are you? That's why when you're a believing woman, you don't want to just run around with something that don't have God at its root. You're making a serious mistake. Should Muslim children who are high school age be participating in courtship? What are your recommendations? Well, let me say this to every mother and father. You know, every young girl and boy, I imagine, at a certain age would like to be introduced to the opposite sex. That's natural, isn't it? But courtship, never. Never. You don't let no man take up no time with your daughter. What the hell is he gonna do with her? He ain't got no job. He can't earn no money. All he got is a sperm. Do you hear what I'm saying? Then why are you going to let that man spend all that time in your house with your daughter with your back turned? You're a foolish mother. And you end up with a pregnant daughter, and you be around here saying, I wish I had known better. You do know better. A young man come to meet your daughter and meet your husband. And what is your intention, man? What you want with my daughter? I just want to talk to her. Talk to her about what? What grade you in school? 6th grade. How old are you? 16. What are you going to do with your daughter? All they can do is get in trouble. We should have the youngsters meet each other and have social relationships, but under the watchful eye of wise ones. Let them enjoy each other in a beautiful way. But what a courtship is for people that got something to offer, serious. Ain't nobody on this side that's 16 years old serious. They don't know what life is. Ain't got no job. They looking to their mom and their dad to buy them their clothes. How in the world they gonna buy clothes for your daughter and a baby on the way? Common sense tell you what to do. Just use your common sense. No, high school age, nothing in no courtship. Go to school. Messed that thing up, didn't I? What is your opinion on Muslim mothers who know the laws of Islam and tell their children it is okay to have sex, just protect yourself? And they knew the law of no fornication before marriage. Signed, Confused. Sister Confused. Why are you confused? Seem like the person who is confused is the person who knows the law and teaches contrary to it. You let that confuse you? There are hypocrites in every faith, aren't there?
Yes, sir.
So you just ran into one. Don't get confused. If you got a young daughter and you telling her be safe, have safe sex, so walk around with condoms in your pocket, you may think you're doing all right by your daughter. For what she finds somebody that she likes, and she's like a dog in a meat house. She'll sample this one today and that one tomorrow and the next one the next day. That's why they make more than one condom. You hurt yourself, sisters. You think you're having fun, but you're hurting yourselves. Any good mother will always advise her daughter properly. Whether you lived it yourself or not, and made mistakes yourself or not, once you know the right way, it is your duty to teach the right way. Yes, it's hard. Don't tell me it's hard. I know it's hard. they're going to do what they want to do anyway, but you don't get any credit as a parent teaching them in accord with a permissive way of life. You know, just be careful, daughter. Make the boy wear some protection. What are you telling your daughter? You know, sisters, you don't know yourself. Boy, you really mess yourself up. You know, a woman, I don't want to get into all of that tonight, but I'll tell you something. There is a reason why the scripture says a virtuous woman is more precious than silver and gold.
Yes, sir.
When a man got a woman that's a virgin,
Yes, sir.
you got a prize, brother. You got a prize. Any man that's been out there in the world, you'll fool around with the woman who will fool around. But when you want to settle down, you're looking for something clean to settle down with. Yeah. You don't want a woman that's like Grand Central Station. All the trains have stopped there. You meet a woman with a pocket full of condoms, brother, you better keep going. And I bet you the mother that's advising a daughter like that ain't got no man. I know that. I know you ain't got none and ain't gonna get none. Say you buy one for the evening, but you won't have no man. Hell no, you ain't gonna have too much good. But you don't really understand what a woman is yet. You don't really understand who you are yet. You are so priceless and so precious. You just don't understand. I'm telling you, sisters, it is terrible to give yourself away, throw yourself away on some unworthy person that's just looking for a night of fun, and after it's over you feel so empty. What did you get out of it? Really, nothing. And the men are so low down, after they have you, they go talk about you and tell the other brothers, oh man, she loose. Yeah, I had so you can hit that.
That's right.
Is that what you want?
Right.
Well, get away from being cheap. You don't experience cheapness. You've been that all your life. Come up out of that. And if you come up out of it, don't sentence your children to that. There's enough of that in the world already. Go ahead. When in love with a woman whom I've been with for 4 years, and all of a sudden wants to do different things like wearing revealing clothing, and is influenced by material things and nightclubs and friends, and my word means nothing, I am really hurting. So what can I do? That's the answer. Brother, you know, things happen like that. People change up on you. And when they change up on you like that, something has happened in the relationship. My mother used to have a saying, milk once soured, never sweet again. I don't know whether that's a good saying where love is concerned. You might want to talk to her and ask her, tell her you've noticed these things and you want to know what's happening. And she might just tell you, I don't want you no more. And you don't have to say, what can I do? It's time to move on. And I'm going to tell you, brother, it takes two to love. And when things start turning all the way around, you have to, if you can patch it, fine, but don't be no fool. If it's changed up on you, then there's somebody out there that will love you. How does a sister deal with the first time domestic violence? Do I leave or try to understand this? How do you try to understand a whooping? Police just jumped on me and whooped me to a fare thee well. Should I leave or should I just try to understand his nightstick? There ain't no understanding. We got to get an understanding, brother, that you don't beat your wife. We got to get an understanding, brother, that there's another way to do this other than whooping on a woman. I know some of them need it. Brother Farrakhan, I thought you was our friend. I am, sister, but you know some of y'all need a whooping. You push a man sometime till he whoop you. Some of you don't even feel good unless his fist is living in your mouth like a dentist. But I'm telling you, as a man, brother, I can't see myself as no man whooping on no woman. If I got a whipper, I don't need her. I don't want a woman that I gotta beat. If I can't approach my wife with reason and say, no, sweetheart, this is, the way it should be done, and this is why. Well, no, I ain't gonna do it, and that's it. You can do what you want to do. Yeah, that's right, baby. Better hurry on up and believe it, man. You don't love that hard that you can't leave what you love. But beating her up, what does it prove? That don't make sense. You gotta beat her, then get into bed with her? You gotta beat her, then you dumb enough to sleep? No, sister, I don't believe in that whooping. My mother, listen, my mother, bless her heart, she's gone on, but she sent a few on before. My father, she said my father beat her one day. Must have put a whooping on her too. And she's a tough woman. She waited for him to go to sleep. Now, I'm not giving you no suggestions, sisters. She waited for my dad to go to sleep, and while he was asleep, she went and took all the light bulbs out of the lights. Then she crushed the glass and put it all around the bed. Then she got a hammer and eased up on the bed and went to hammering a nail, which was his head. He woke up quick and jumped. She hit him and then she ran. He jumped up out the bed, stepped on the glass, and he was hollering and screaming. She didn't have no husband after that. She died a single woman. Brother, some of these sisters don't pay the whooper, man. Some of these brothers woke up dead. No, sister, I'm just going to be really sit down and talk with your husband. You know, I hit my wife when I first became a Muslim. I really did. She was pregnant with Maria, and I went upside her head because they told me I was God. You know what I mean? She didn't look like she wanted to believe it. So I was gonna make a believer out of her, you know. So I smacked her upside her head, and she smacked me upside my head. And it seemed like I got some sense because I never did that again. And I felt so bad, brother. After I hit her, and she was pregnant with my child. When I walked out that house that day, I felt lower than a worm. There's not a real man that feels good beating on a woman.
Mr. Farrakhan, can you explain why Allah gave the woman an intuitive nature, and is this the covering that is made for the man? I only have a few more questions and that's it. Very quickly. Allah didn't give her any more an intuitive nature than He gave you. But when He takes something from you, He increases other things that you have. I've seen people who lose power in one arm, but then they get extraordinary strength in the other one that they have. Right? If you lose sight, you get an increase in hearing. Right. And even in smelling. He increases you. The black woman has lost something. You know what she's lost? She's lost the value of a good man. She don't have a man to comfort her, to guide her, to protect her. She's really out here alone with your children and mine, alone. So when a woman is deprived of a man, then God has to make that up for her. So He forces the woman to come to Him. This is why black women fill the churches. It is because they have become more reliant on God than the man, because they had no man to rely on, so they put their trust in God. And in putting their trust in God, He answers them in His own magnificent and peculiar way. They have an individual relationship with the Creator. I mean, sisters, if I talk to you as women, you would know that I know what you go through. Because you have to have a special relationship with the Creator. In order to make it in a world like this, you got to talk to somebody, and you ain't got nobody to talk to. So when your children are sleeping, you in the night talking to God. Laying up in your bed, I mean, wish there was a man there to comfort you, but he's not there. So you got to talk to God. God, so and so and so and so, and Lord, so and so and so and so. Lord, you know I need so. And the next day, or so, you go out and you find what you've been praying for, and you say, Lord, thank you, Lord. And your relationship with him just gets stronger and stronger. And the stronger her relationship gets, she begins to rely on God so much and to seek him so much, she develops an intuitive skill, which develops into extrasensory perception. And this is why you have women everywhere you go. You don't ever hardly see a man setting up a shop as a reader. The readers are women. Have you noticed? You all are the ones that say they're born with the veil. It's the women, not the men. Because you are forced to rely on God, and whether you know it or not, as crazy as our people are, you got a very special relationship with the God. And I mean, you go into the church, as I do sometimes. I love to just sit down and talk to the mothers of the church. Sometimes I meet them, not in the church, but I meet them in other places. They don't know necessarily who I am. And I talk with them. I mean, they're very wholesome. These are women that can talk to you about God and hold you spellbound. Right. See? And then they can feel you and say, boy, yes, you know, yes, I can feel something about you, child. You say a few words, I can see God is in you, boy. And before you know it, old people will start telling you things. But the people that are doing it is women. And if God didn't take your man from you, you wouldn't have known the kind of powers that you really have. And it's your powers developed by the absence of a man under oppressive men that is what's going to force the world to recognize that God comes in a woman too. Heavy. Yes, sir, brother. My brother has a problem with understanding that God is man and not a spirit. Will you please explain this? Certainly. Brothers and sisters, the scripture says God is a spirit, right? What is spirit? What is a spirit? Do you have spirit? Do I have a spirit? Yes. It could be a good spirit, it could be a evil spirit, right? But we all have spirit. What is spirit? It is the energy of life. That energy of life is manifested in some form. The dog has life. He's called an animal. Animal comes from a Latin word animus. Animus means having life. We all have the spirit or the energy of life, but that energy is manifested through a form. Look, we have light. You don't see the electricity. The manifestation that there's electricity is the fact that there's light. But that light is manifest through a bulb. Is that right? That electricity is transmitted through a wire that is copper. Is that right? If you don't have the copper, you don't have the means to transmit the energy or the current. By the same token, God's energy is transmitted through the physical creation. That sun out there, can you see it? Is it real? Is it energy? Yes, but it's physical, isn't it? The moon, the stars, you are surrounded by energy. All around you is energy, but that energy is manifested in a physical reality. So it is with God. The scripture says of the Bible, I'm quoting Bible now, Abraham, and I think it's the 18th chapter of Genesis, Abraham
was in the plains of Mamre, and 3 men came to Abraham, and one of them was the Lord. Not a Lord, but the Lord. And Abraham, the father of monotheism in the modern context, Abraham said, "My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, pass not away from my door." Sarah came out from the tent and said, "Lord, sit down. Let me fix food for you." The Lord had something to sit down on, and the Lord had a stomach to partake of food. Yeah, God always was, God is, and he shall always be manifest in man and woman and in us. You may believe it or let it alone. But you can sit in your house and pray for that mystery God to bring you bread. But if God don't send a man in there with some food, you be there dead, waiting for a mystery to drop something down on you. The thing that throws all of us off is because we have never known man in man's true nature and self. We've never seen a man like that. The wisdom of man is infinite. Whatever a man can conceive in his brain, yes, sir, he has the power to bring it forth. There is no God but Allah. And the scriptures of the Quran don't make mistakes. They say he, I, we. That ain't referring to spirit. Spirit is it. It did. But the Bible doesn't say it did. He said, I shall do. I saw. I heard. I hate. I love. I am God. I am jealous. It ain't no jealousy and hate and love and power is not spirits to do. That's what great men and weak men do. You're a weak man and a weak woman, but you do this on your level. God does it on the most high level, and he's the most magnificent of all beings, the wisest of all, the most perfect of all, the most powerful of all, yet he is a man. I do not understand who is Master Farad Muhammad, because my religion teaches that you can't see God. God is a spirit, not a human being. Well, maybe so. And certainly you have not seen the God who created the heavens and the earth, and that is true. So in that sense, that's right. But if you read the Bible, I don't know what religion you're in, but if it's based on the Bible, Enoch walked with God. Moses saw him and spoke to him face to face as a man speaketh to his friend, according to the Bible. Abraham said 3 men approached him, and one of them was the Lord. And Abraham addressed this man saying, Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, pass not away from me. And then told the Lord to sit down. And then went and talked to Sarah, told Sarah, fix some victuals because the Lord may be hungry.
Good, that's right.
I don't know what God you're referring to, because he said Adam heard him walking in the garden. Right into Genesis, somebody heard him walking. He can't walk unless he have feet. Read the Bible. It said his eyes behold the good and the evil. The wicked, their wickedness stunk in his nostrils. The mouth of the Lord has spoken it. I have heard your moaning and your groaning. Look at the book. My arm is not too short that it cannot save. And on his thigh was written King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And on his head was a crown. So maybe you need to see God. Who is God? Allah or man? Or are they one in the same? Please explain. This is a beautiful question. You know, the Arabic language is the most mathematical and precise and exact language that there is. This is a revealed book. Nobody but God spoke the language in the ear of the prophet. He addressed himself, you know, using personal pronoun. I, Allah, am the best knower. We, I, he. Then in one chapter, that's called, I think, the disbeliever or the believer. No, the disbeliever. He says, Allah says in the Quran, we do not worship that which you worship. And you do not worship him whom I worship. That and him. That language is precise. The attributes of God are the attributes of a living being. I'm not worshiping space. I don't think you should either. How did Allah God appear in the person of Master Farad Muhammad? Was Allah a spirit before entering? Wouldn't that make Allah a spook? Where is he now? And are we to pray and worship Master Farad Muhammad? All of these are very excellent questions. And they're not only questions on the mind of sincere and committed Muslims, particularly Orthodox Muslims, but they are questions on the mind of any believer in God. So let us get to the answer. First, we must understand the nature of this universe in which we live. Allah is the creator of all that we see. And there is a world that is seen, and there is a world that is unseen. Everything that you see is related to something unseen. You see the earth, but you don't see the power that controls the earth. Is that true? The Quran says that you see the planets floating on in their orbits. They're not upheld by any pillars, but yet they are upheld. And the power that upholds the planet that is seen is a power that is unseen yet real. Okay. Now, the majesty of the unseen is manifested by what you see. If you did not see the planet, see the sun, see the moon, see the stars, you would not look for the power that created it. So it is the seen that leads you to discover the unseen. Am I making sense? Now, when you look at the sun, 93 million miles from the earth, huge ball of fire, 856,000 miles in diameter. The sun is also moving by a power, but the power that moves the sun is unseen. But the sun represents the unseen power that you don't see, but is manifested through what you see. All right. The smallest particle of matter was known to be an atom. In the atom, there are electrons, neutron, proton, still particles of matter, so minuscule that you cannot see it with the naked eye. Now the scientists have broken the atom down into even smaller parts called a quark. This is what they call Q-U-A-R-K. But this is a tiny particle of matter, but yet even the tiniest particle of matter has an unseen force that is moving that matter. Okay, now that we clear that, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that the most mysterious force in the universe is electricity. You do not know the beginning of electricity, and you can't find the end of electricity, but electricity is in everything. But now, here we have lights. But these lights are manifestations of a power that is unseen. You can't touch electricity, but it is conducted through something that you see. The best conductor of electricity is gold and silver, but it's too expensive to put gold and silver in a building to conduct electricity, so they put copper wiring, right? Electricity does not wear out, but copper does. Talk to me. Okay, now, what am I saying? Even when the copper wears out and there's a shortage in the bulb, you don't say electricity has worn out. You just say the copper has worn out. We replace the copper, but you don't replace electricity. Come on, talk to me. All right, we're talking on God now. You cannot separate spirit from matter. Just like you cannot separate energy from form, matter. Well, then how do you separate spirit from that which manifests it? You can't do it. When you separate copper from the electricity, you don't have any more manifestation of the electric power. Even though the power is present, you can't see its presence or feel its presence until it is conducted through something. Master Farad Muhammad was born of a woman in 1877. Stop right there. Well, if this man was born in 1877, he cannot be the originator of the heavens and the earth. When we say our prayers, we say, surely I have turned myself to thee, O Allah, to him who originated the heavens and the earth. You didn't say to it who originated the heavens and the earth. You said what? To him. Him. This Quran is a book based on the highest principles of mathematics. The language of the Quran is mathematical. If it came from God himself, surely God knows himself better than we know him. So if God uses pronouns, I, Allah, am the best knower. I, Allah, am the seer. Then he uses soft pronoun, we. The Bible uses us. Who is we? We spooks? We spirits? Or we men and women? You have been made so spooked up in your understanding of God. This is why you don't have the power as men to do what a man is supposed to do, because you are not really connected to God. You see God as some space cadet. The Bible says, let us make man in our image and after our likeness. Are you made in the image and likeness of God? What are you? What are you? You a man? Oh, really? Sure you are. You are also a little God. You are the only creature in the universe that has the power to think, to vision, to will, and then bring into existence what you vision. The sun can't do it, the moon can't do it, the stars can't do it, the mountains can't do it, the lakes and the rivers can't do it. Man and woman is the supreme being. There is no existence on this earth greater than man. Everything that God created, he created to serve man and woman. You are the best of God's creation. Therefore the Quran says Allah made you in the best of molds. There's nothing greater than this. This is greater than mosques, greater than the Kaaba, greater than St. Peter's Basilica. But it is temporary like the copper. It wears out, but the spirit never wears out. This body is the best that God created, but it's not made to last forever. Yet God is the ever-living. He never dies. How then can he be a man? Men die. Well, the Quran says when Allah created Adam, he called him Khalifa. Come on. What does Khalifa mean? I didn't write the book. The language says Khalifa means one who takes the place of another who has died. Khalifa means successor. How does God have a successor? We don't understand. The copper wire that we put up to replace the one that's burned out looks just like the one that was burned out. We ain't too fussy about the wire. We want the power in the electricity. All right, let's see now. Was Allah a spirit before entering? Allah doesn't describe himself as just spirit. What are his names? He has 99 of them. And some of the scholars say he has more than the 100. Each one of these attributes are characteristics of who? Of Allah. Do you wear Allah's name? Why? Why do you wear Allah's name? Are you Kareem? But he is Al-Kareem. Are you Hakim? The wise? He is Al-Hakim. He is the wise. Are you Rahman, the beneficent? He is Al-Rahman, the beneficent. He is the most of all that have beneficent. He is the most beneficent. He is the perfection of the attribute. But you can wear the attribute because you can manifest the attribute, but not to the excellent degree that he can. He's supreme among us all. Now. Why did we say Allah came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad? When you know that Allah's attributes are beneficent, merciful, the giver of life, the raiser of the dead, the grantor of security. He is Rabbil Alameen. He is the one who nurtures a thing and makes it attain stage after stage until it reaches its eventual perfection. And then some. He is the peace. He is the grantor of security. He's all of these wonderful things. He's the bountiful, but he's also the destroyer. He's the avenger. All of this is in you. It's in me. But you can only avenge and destroy to the limit of your power. Since he is all powerful, he can avenge all and destroy all. He Here you and I were in America destroyed by Caucasian power and influence. And for 400 years, no leader had been able to rectify our condition. Master Farad Muhammad came. I never saw him. I never met him. But I am the beneficiary of his beneficence, his mercy, his knowledge, his power, his ability to give life, to raise the dead, the grantor of security. Here I am in the midst of my enemies, and a table is spread before me. None of you can claim to be my teacher. The world did not know what Master Farad Muhammad gave to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You just didn't know it. You didn't know there was life on 7 or 9 of the planets and they are inhabited by life. You didn't know that till Elijah Muhammad said it. You didn't know that the moon was a part of the earth 66 trillion years ago until Elijah Muhammad said it. You didn't know the diameter of the universe until Elijah Muhammad said it. Now everything that he said, the scholars are bearing witness to it. And and he only went to the 4th grade of school. Well, who taught him? You didn't teach him. I didn't teach him. The University of Chicago didn't teach him. Harvard didn't teach him. Oxford didn't teach him. So whoever taught him knows better than anyone else who teaches. So if Allah says, I am the best knower, then I got a right to say Allah came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad. The power was in the vessel. We don't worship the flesh. We worship the knowledge, the wisdom, the power that is eternal. The flesh is gonna die, but the power lives. What is in me? It's the same thing that is in him. He put it in the messenger put it in me, and I'm putting it in you. But one day, all of us will pass away, but the knowledge won't pass away. You just like copper, you broke down under the power of the electricity. It'll be here, doctor. God travels in this body. These bodies is the real house of God.